I'd first heard about triathlon probably 15 years ago or something when they were doing the women's triathlons, and sort of took part in one then. And at that point I heard about Ironman, and I guess it wasn't too much the triathlon but the Ironman that really interested me. But as soon as I thought, oh, that would be cool to do, don't be stupid. And it's always just sort of sat in the back of my head. I guess it's just confidence in general for anything. You always doubt yourself, and I guess it sort of felt like it really felt like an elite sport, and only for those real athletes. It was only when I went and watched the Ironman last year that I went and saw normal people that weren't athletes were doing it, and that's when I went, no, I can do it. And that thing that had been sitting in me for 15 years finally went, no, you can do it. So I was initially diagnosed with what was called ulcerative colitis in 2015. Ulcerative colitis is an inflammatory bowel disease, very much the same as Crohn's. They managed me really well, got it under control, and was good for 5 years on medication. And last year, just before COVID, we started reducing my medication because I had been so good for so long. And during COVID, I got another flare, and so at that point I got back into the hospital system, and with various tests and things during the year, they've then since re-diagnosed me as having Crohn's. And the difference between the two is really how much they're affecting the bowel. At that point, when I had watched last year's Ironman and said, yep, no, definitely going to go and do it, and I got this program online, trying to do it myself and trying to train, having this flare and being sick, it meant that I was barely able to leave the house, so couldn't really train. Like, I'd be out even just walking the dog and I'd suddenly stop because I couldn't take another step. Right through till probably December last year, I was really struggling, going for a run. Once I'd got into a point where I could run, I was always, do I have the energy to do it? Is this going to take it out of me? And even right through till now, probably 6 weeks ago, I was still quite conscious of my symptoms and trying to exercise. So I was only recently that they've got me well enough that I can exercise comfortably.
Yeah, you just realise how much you rely on your body, and it was letting Brooke down. And but it was really encouraging when the specialist said, "No, we can get you better than this."
We are doing an aerobic heart rate efficiency test. I'm going to give you all your heart rate cap, which most of you are going to have a pretty good idea. And we're going to start, and you've got to keep under that heart rate cap for the whole 30 minutes and measure how far you go. And then when we retest, your heart rate doesn't change, but hopefully, if we're training correctly, you'll go further, which means you're more efficient aerobically. And that underpins the whole process. This can be a really motivating process when you retest and you go further at that same heart rate. So we're doing our aerobic efficiency test now, and in some weeks coming up, we're also going to do a max heart rate test. 3, 2, 1, go. All right. So with this test tonight, we're doing a maximum aerobic function or maximum aerobic capacity test. Some people might say it's the MAF heart rate, which is 180 minus your age, plus or minus 5, depending on your experience in the sport. And I do use that principle as a guideline, but depending on the athlete, I'll adjust accordingly as to where I think they're at. The math is a good guiding principle, but it's not something that I follow definitively. And what happens is most age groupers will generally do their easy stuff too hard, and when they first do this test, it's not surprising that some of them walk. But the key is when we retest in a few weeks, obviously if they're doing a 30-minute test, they'll go further, which means the training we're doing is working. Now, if we retest in a few weeks and they don't go further, well then we're doing something wrong, and it's more often than not they're doing their easy sessions too hard into the moderate or the grey zone. So it really highlights what people's aerobic efficiency is like, which underpins the whole process of endurance sport. This is hard for people's ego as well, especially if they have to walk or they go a lot slower than what they think, because they've spent too much time training that moderate intensity. So it is a bit of an ego check, this one as well. When Brooke first did this test, we did it in our beginners course, when she did our beginners course back in February, March, so a few months ago now. She spent a lot of that test walking, so here we are a few months later, and she's been doing her training really well and at the right intensity. So tonight we've already started and she's running the whole way, and she's going to continue to get fitter and more aerobically efficient to help her for the Ironman, which is what we're after. How did that feel?
It was good actually. Like, I felt like I hadn't done that sort of distance for a while, even though we did the longer ones on the weekend, but just the straight, flat, just run.
Yep.
Felt really good. I don't know what my times were, but
How
I
were
was
the
happy
calves?
with. There was one twinge up through the calf and through like the IT bands,
Yep.
but only briefly, and then that stopped. So not happy with
If you
that.
think back to when we sort of first did this test in the beginners course,
Yeah,
how much faster are you going now? guess.
I can remember that 30
Yeah,
minutes in
yeah.
the beginner's course
Yeah,
of just
yeah.
keeping going,
Yeah.
and yeah, that was a hard slog.
Yeah, whereas you
Painful.
could have done another 30 minutes.
Yeah, when I first started, I was like, I found that pace of just cruising
Yeah,
and
yeah,
just could keep going.
Yep.
I was a little bit worried about the pain in the leg briefly, but
Yeah,
after
yeah.
that went away and focused on
Good.
what was in front of me, so
Oh.
that was good.
You did really well.
Thank you.
All right, let's do another easy left, mate.
Okay.
Good job.
Yeah, I kept it very, very quiet until earlier this year when I had used all my sick leave, used all my holidays because of days of needing to be home and looking after myself. And with being flexible, I could do some longer hours at times to then make it up. But whenever I did some extra hours, that would screw me. I'd need to take another day off because I couldn't manage. It would be too tiring and too hard on the body. So no, they didn't know until earlier this year when, like I said, I'd used all my days up, and so I needed some more flexibility in not having to do my full hours. And so they just did a no questions asked policy where if I just did 70 hours that fortnight, then that's fine, I'll just get paid for that, and yeah, that was it. So yeah, flexible, but didn't know. It's funny because with Crohn's, most people lose significant amounts of weight really quickly, like 10 kilos within 10 days is not uncommon. However, I was the one that put it on, and there's a few reasons for that I put it down to, is I was on steroids for a good chunk of time, but also when I was at my worst, I didn't feel like eating, didn't have the energy to cook anything, and so I knew I needed to eat, so I would just do whatever was easiest and quickest. So it would be a lot of bread, a lot of just packet pastas, just to get me through, and then getting into the cycle of a bit of takeaways because that was quick and easy, and then feeling like, oh, I'll just do that again. And I put on 20 kilos within a matter of probably 8 months, but also probably I'm a bit of an emotional eater as well, so with the stress of Crohn's and how down I was because of it, that all just piled piled on. So I went from being at my absolute healthiest when I first started attempting to train to my absolute worst within a matter of months. And so that was tough. Trying to train on my own, I would sit on the couch thinking, oh, it's too wet, it's too cold, and find every excuse under the sun not to go. And when I did go, certainly not pushing myself. Every time I went, it was, oh well, at least you're doing it. Yeah, at least getting out and taking part, I guess. But training with a group has just made it so much easier. It's been a massive impact as well. Having the same people turning up and seeing them improve as well, it's been really cool. Yeah.
She's out doing things, and sometimes we'd perhaps come and visit and she's not wanting to do anything and on the couch, and it's because perhaps how she was, because obviously she had no energy, and just getting out and being happy again.
Definitely having that structure, I think, by being with a group, you have a structure and you almost feel a commitment to them to go and help them as much as you're helping yourself. Triathlon's sort of like an individual sport, but it's the team training, becomes a team thing, by going out with others. So it just lifts you, I think. She's been in some pretty dark places with her Crohn's, and just sitting on the couch and having no energy and thinking, what's the future hold? It's pretty worrying as parents, that's for sure.
And the social aspect of joining in with this group has been brilliant, to give you a lift to get out and do things and be with people, and everyone needs to be with people, and having that interest that you're all trying to achieve, such a big thing.
Someone like Brooke, there's a lot of people out there that really have this determination to do an Ironman, but they need the support. They need to get, coach, a community, a group to train with. The determination is there, but without that support and that guidance and structure, they're often going to struggle. So Brooke was following a generic program last year, but like a lot of generic programs, it just doesn't hold them accountable. You need that. You do need that support for Ironman, especially if it's your first time for someone like Brooke. If you're still pretty new to the sport and you're a beginner, you really do need that support, and that's where the community and the group environment really helps someone like Brooke. She's just sort of learning to do the training on her own as well, but she's thriving in a situation where the group session's going really, really well, and we're just exposing her to some of those rides and runs and swims on her own, but not too much. And what you'll find is that as she sort of gets more experience and gets a little bit stronger, she'll be fine. But she's got what I call gumption. She readily admits her challenges and vulnerable enough to say, look, I might struggle with this, going for a ride on my own for 3 hours, I might struggle with that, but she'll get out and do it. So it's really important to understand where people are at on their journey and getting them to put them in a situation where they trust you, where they can be vulnerable and admit their weaknesses and where they might struggle. And as a coach, just having that empathy, trying to support them through the journey. So, it's important to realise there's probably a lot of people out there like Brooke, but for whatever reason, their fear holds them back.
I've only done short course triathlons. I've done one marathon and a few times bike round the mountain, but never in the same day or the same month. I said to her, look, you just have to finish it. Even if you practice just walking the marathon, you don't have to run, but just do what you can do, and you'll get there. And I'm sure she will.
I've spent a year getting through Crohn's and been told, yep, you're in remission. but they've said that I will be getting more regular flares, but they should be for a shorter period of time, sort of 1 to 2 months. But that's my biggest fear, I think, for the next year leading up to Ironman, is that at any point I could get another flare, and that is going to be a massive impact on my journey and my training, and that's scary. Yeah. It's under control now, and the specialists have been really, really good. I was really nervous about telling them that I was going for Ironman, because I was like, I don't want them to tell me not to, and they were fantastic. They were like, okay, well, we'll add these extra tests in for you to make sure that you're in optimum health. We'll look after this and we'll look after that, and wanting to hear about my story and wanting to do anything to support me. So that was such a relief to know someone's not going to say, no, don't do it, because I don't know if I would have listened.